Learn the basics of a 529 college savings plan and how to use gifts to fund them.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today we have an interview with Patricia Roberts, the COO of Gift of College. And in this episode, we're going to talk a lot about 529 plans. Now, 529 plans have their positive and negative aspects, and there's some disclosures at the end of this episode that you need to listen to before you make any decisions around 529s. And there's certainly good things and bad things about 529s. In general, I think they have their place, though. So in this interview, we're going to cover the basics of what 529 plans are. And then we're also going to talk about Patricia's company, Gift of College, and how her company is helping families and businesses give the gift of college by using gifting strategies to place money into a 529 for a student or a child, whether it's a child of an employee or, again, child in the family. So instead of giving a bunch of gifts that the student may or may not need, you can actually give college money, which, again, anybody going to college will definitely need. As always, show notes are available, and all the links that we talk about will be available in our show notes at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/154. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the interview. Today, we're sitting down with Patricia Roberts. She is COO of Gift of College and the author of Route 29, a book about college savings plans, and also a mom who recently had a college graduate. So welcome, Patricia.
Thank you for having me here today, Brad.
All right. So obviously you've got a lot going on in the higher education and college space, both personally and professionally. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you got involved in all this and kind of your journey so far?
Sure. So by way of background, as a young person from a low-income family, I almost missed the opportunity to attend college because of cost. And I was ultimately able to attend and obtain both an undergraduate and eventually a graduate degree while working multiple jobs, the graduate degree at night while working full-time. But I took on a tremendous amount of educational debt and had a lot of it on my hands when my son arrived. In fact, his father and I owed over $100,000 in student loan debt. So we've got the background of having come to this with a lot of debt. I also have the background of really appreciating the power of higher education. Getting those degrees really enabled me to lift my family out of the situation they were in terms of the way they were living and to really create a brighter future for myself. So huge respect for the many doors that higher education can open. In terms of my professional experience with these plans, I was an attorney at Citigroup in the late 1990s at a time when they were interested in getting into the 529 arena. These plans have been around over 26 years, and every state, except for Wyoming, has a 529 plan, and many of the states hire an investment management firm to manage the investments in the plan and to help run the program, distribute it through financial advisors, etc. Citi was interested in getting into this line of business, and I learned about it as an attorney. I learned about Section 529 of the Internal Revenue Code, happened to be pregnant with my son at that time, so it was an interesting assignment for me to receive. And having learned about it, I both helped Citi get 2 programs off the ground at the time. They won the mandate for both Illinois and Colorado and started working with those plans. And I was able to start saving for my own son because I had the knowledge of the plan. And as soon as I returned from that maternity leave, I opened a 529 account and I started contributing directly from my paycheck into it. with the strongest desire that my son not wind up in the situation that his father and I were in with student loan debt. And really, the rest is history. Both his dad and I started putting small amounts into the 529 plan directly from our paycheck. The money never passed our hands. And by doing that, we really became quite disciplined. And over time, as we earned more money and we eventually got those school loans paid off, we were able to contribute more and more and to invite friends and family to join us. And as you said at the top of the broadcast here, I do have a son who has graduated from college, and he just graduated last June debt-free, largely due to our contributions to the 529 plan and also due to our making some smart decisions as a family in terms of school choice and what really worked for us in terms of net cost.
Right.
So lots of connections to this topic.
Right. Absolutely. So, and of course, you also, as we mentioned, wrote a book, Route 29, which talks about 529s. But I guess before we move on, there's probably a number of listeners out there that are saying, man, I understand that, you save when you have a baby and that kind of stuff. But I've now got a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old, and I can't go back and get started when I should have, perhaps. I just want to make it clear that, 529s work certainly when you have a baby, as you demonstrate, but they also work when, you've got a 15 or 17 or even a kid in college potentially.
That's correct. I feel strongly that it is never too late to get started with the saving process, especially for a goal like higher education. I want parents to know that any amount that they can accumulate is that much less that their child's going to have to borrow and repay with interest. So, no sense regretting that you didn't start sooner. Just get started. And whatever you're able to accumulate is going to be helpful. And the more disciplined you can be, the more you can take a look at your current expenditures and see if there's any room to cut back, the greater the chance you will be in being able to accumulate some funds that will be useful to your child. And, there's no need to worry about saving it all. I think most people don't do that. There are other ways, and I'm sure you talk to your listeners all the time about other ways to pay for higher education. But this is an important element to consider and to not put off doing wherever you are in the process, because time is valuable.
Right. As I've said often, there's lots of different ways to attack college, but one way to think about it is there's two steps to the process. One is figure out the right school at the right price, and try and get that price as low as possible. And again, I'm not saying everybody go to the cheapest option. I'm saying, if this, find the school that has the best price and meets your needs. And sometimes it might be the expensive school, but whatever it is, you try and get that price as low as you reasonably can. Just like when you shop around for a car, right? You're not going to find a $2 car. You're going to have to pay a certain amount. Once you've figured out what that price you're going to pay is, the next step is to pay that price efficiently. And that's where 529s fall in, is they can be a very efficient way to pay whatever you're going to pay for college, whether it's, full price at a state school or half price at a public or at a private school or whatever it might be. Most of the time, the parents end up paying a portion, whether that's, again, a few $1,000s or a few $100,000. The 529s, I think, can add a lot to it. So I guess let's jump into the very basics then. Obviously, you wrote a book on Route 529, which talks about college savings plans. So what are the biggest benefits of the 529?
Sure. First of all, what's special about 529 plans is that they enable individuals to really earmark or designate funds for a particular purpose. So rather than mixing in savings for college with savings for other objectives and risking that you're going to pull that money and use it for something different, 529 plans really give you the chance to designate funds for this particular purpose. What's also special about 529 plans that I'd like to point out is that the account owner stays in control of the account versus once the child reaching age 18 or 21 and getting their hands on the money, That's not the case with 529. The account owner, whoever it is, and it does not have to be the child's parent, it could be a grandparent, it could be an aunt or uncle, it could be someone else, but that individual decides when and under what circumstances to disperse those funds on behalf of that beneficiary. So I like that. So we've got earmarking, we've got the account owner in control, we've got tax benefits. So these accounts, unlike taxable investments, while they're growing in value, the growth or the earnings are not taxed. So they're growing tax-free. And in fact, if you use the funds for their intended purpose, and we can talk about what those purposes are, various forms of higher education, not just college. If when you withdraw those funds, they've grown tax-free, when you withdraw them, if they're being used for one of these qualified purposes, you will never pay tax on the earnings. So what that means is, in my view, less tax means potentially more money for college. And even better, 35 states and the District of Columbia offer some form of a state tax deduction or credit for contributions to these accounts. So if you happen to live in one of these states or the District of Columbia, you can get an annual tax deduction or credit. That can be valuable to you as well. What else can I tell you about 529 plans? They often have low minimums to get started. Many of the 529 plans have brought their initial deposit requirement down to $25 or even less. So low minimums, high maximums. There's a recognition that college is expensive. You can save several $100,000 of these accounts if you happen to have that money. There's no income limits, as there are with other forms of saving and investing, no time limits. And there's really a lot of flexibility in terms of use, not just for traditional college as we may think of it, but also for trade and technical schools, cosmetology school, culinary institutes, many different ways you can use these funds. You can use them for tuition and fees, books and supplies, room and board if you're attending at least half-time, room and board on campus or off campus, as long as you're attending at least half-time, and other requirements for attendance at college. In fact, computers can even be paid for with 529 plans if the student is using it for that purpose. So those are some of the highlights of 529 plans.
Right, absolutely. So that's all the good news. So what's the bad news? I mean, what do we give up? What are some of the downsides of 529s?
Well, one issue that investors should consider is whether indeed they believe the funds will be used for some form of higher education. So while you'll never lose the money, it always belongs to the account owner. You may have to pay, if you take the money out for some purpose that is not related to higher education, you will have to pay the tax on the earnings that you had not paid while the account was growing in value. Fair enough. You earmarked it for this potential purpose. You didn't use it for that. You're going to owe those taxes, state and federal taxes. There is also a 10% federal penalty on the earnings only. So the tax is owed on the earnings only, and there's a federal penalty on the earnings only if you do not use this money for some form of higher education. What many families realize is that most young people pursue some form of higher education. Even those who don't, there may be a family member that can use the funds. 529 under the Internal Revenue Code is pretty generous. It allows you to redirect those funds to another beneficiary who is a member of the family of the original beneficiary. And that goes all the way out to first cousins. It can be a step or half sister or brother. It could be an aunt or uncle that uses it. The parent, if they happen to be the account owner, can use it for their own adult learning. Or you can save it. If your child's not using this money, you can save it for their children someday. So there's lots of flexibility. If people are worried about not using the funds for higher education, there's lots of flexibility. But I think that's a consideration going into a 529 plan. There's a lot of myths about 529 plans. Because they're called college savings plans, people assume they're just for college. That's not true. And that they are a savings account. They are typically not a savings account. These dollars typically with most 529 plans are invested in the financial markets. So there's certainly the possibility of growth, and there's also the possibility of loss of funds, depending on the performance of the financial market. Some 529 plans do have a savings component within them. You'll want to look carefully if that's your objective. That gives you a lot of safety, but not, the potential of high returns. You're going to get a much lower reward for having much less risk. But those are the things I would think about. Sometimes people are concerned about the impact on federal financial aid by having savings earmarked for college. The reality is with 529 plans, as I said, the account owner controls the account. These are not considered the child's assets. They are considered assets of the account owner. And if the account owner is the parent, they count only a maximum of 5.64% of that account value. So if you've saved $10,000, $564 of it would be considered towards the expected family contribution. Whereas if you had money that was owned by the child, that's up to, I think, 20% or even more. So they're pretty favorable in terms of federal financial aid treatment. There's always the possibility that a college looks at other criteria, institutional aid. They can look at things like 529 plans and other assets as well. But I think the general wisdom is it's better to save than to necessarily be so concerned about the potential financial aid impact, particularly considering that financial aid is often largely comprised of student loans. So there is an impact. I consider it fairly insignificant on the federal front, but it's something you do want to consider.
Right. Okay. So that's I think a good basic overview of 529s. When I'm working with families, I would say 529s are used, probably 80 or 90% of the time in some form as we're building a plan for college. Often we pair them with other types of accounts as well, like a Roth IRA or other pieces as well. But a lot of times the core is a 529. Not always. Obviously, they have their benefits, they have their drawbacks, but I think every family needs to consider them as part of the plan because they have a lot of great benefits. And again, if you don't get the tax benefits and some of those things, or you don't pay taxes because in your situation, well, then again, tax benefits don't help if you don't pay taxes. So there are situations where they don't work as well. But again, I think they fit in. So your company, Gift of College, is kind of an additional layer on top of a 529. So can you tell us a little bit about how Gift of College works? Now that we understand 529s are good and maybe parents or grandparents or whoever may want to get involved in 529s, tell us about the Gift of College and how that fits in.
Sure. So Gift of College, giftofcollege.com, is a platform through which individuals can set up a profile for themselves to indicate to others that they are on a mission to save for college. It's sort of like crowdfunding, whereby you can set up a profile, enter in your information about the 529 plan to which you are saving, and share not the 529 plan information, but really a link to let people know for birthdays, holidays, other milestones and special occasions that you welcome contributions to the college savings account. And so that's something that's special about Gift of College. I do want to mention many of the 529 plans themselves also have the ability for you to invite friends and family through their own functionality. So you don't necessarily need to use Gift of College, but it's a great way if your plan doesn't have it, or if you want to supplement to what your 529 plan offers in terms of inviting others, it's a great way to do that. What's unique about Gift of College is we offer gift cards that can be purchased by friends and family and given to a potential student, a future student. Our gift cards start at $25. They go up to $200 in value. They're available at retailers around the US, soon to be at every CVS location. And individuals can buy those and give them to a future student for various occasions. So instead of asking someone to invite you to contribute to their 529 plan, individuals can give the gift card. I know I give them for every baby shower I attend. I'll buy a modest gift and I'll give a gift card. And that gift card can be redeemed into any 529 college savings plan by going through Gift of College. So that's one part of our business, is helping people save for college by making it convenient for them to invite others and by offering these gift cards
Right. So
in retail and online.
Right. And I think the key, or one of the key points, is if you use the Gift of College, the recipient doesn't have to already have a 529 plan. It might be the impetus to have them investigate it and go start a 529 plan. So if you're an uncle or grandpa or something and you want to give that subtle hint, you can give this card, and now mom and dad typically would need to go set up the account and put the money into the plan. And again, as you mentioned, you give it to everybody, and it would certainly make sense. Again, if for strangers especially, it's like you don't really want to start asking, and again, not strangers, but someone that's not, you don't have intimate knowledge of, I guess is the way to say it, a colleague or something. You can give them the 529, and then they can go put the money where they want. They can invest it the way they want. They can choose whatever plan they want, and they don't have to tell you anything about what they did, how they did it, which plan they chose. They don't have to send you any sort of links. They just get to go start the plan.
Yeah, and I like that about the gift cards. It really can spoil the surprise if you're poking around asking people, are you saving for college? Can I help in some way? If you could just give them the gift card, if they are saving, they'll redeem it into what they're already saving. If they're not, there's really nothing else they can do with the gift card. They will start saving because they will know that they can redeem it into a 529 plan once it's set up. They cannot cash out the value of it and use it for something else. So I like that aspect of it. And many people do tell me that they got started because of that gift card. And I don't only give them for baby showers, I give them for every child's birthday that I can think of, with a smaller, sometimes even a dollar store type gift, because I know how expensive higher education can be and how helpful this gift will be to that child, whether they realize it or not right now, and to their parents, more importantly. So that's another line of business, the platform, the gift cards. And then we work with employers of all sizes around the United States by encouraging them to offer education on 529 college savings plans to their employees, and to consider, it's optional, but to consider matching employee contributions to these plans. Gift of College has a platform that's easy for employers and employees to use. And we're having some success with encouraging employers to help their employees get started with saving. Believe it or not, 65% of Americans say they are unfamiliar with 529 college savings plans. They've obviously not been working with Brad, and they don't know what they are. And if they do know what they are, they don't really understand them. So this is a really valuable benefit for an employer to offer, particularly during this great resignation where people are scrambling and finding new jobs and looking for things that are more rewarding. It really is helpful to offer this type of benefit. So we're finding employers are interested in it, and their employees are used to getting started with savings at work. They're used to retirement savings, maybe healthcare savings accounts. They're used to getting information at work about how to save for various objectives, and they're very grateful to learn about saving for college. So that's really one of the biggest focuses of my day job, the business that I work with.
Right. Okay. Well, great. So that makes a lot of sense as far as, again, if you happen to be a small employer and you're looking for a benefit, and I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm guessing it's a benefit that's not quite so complicated. It's not like a 401k or providing life insurance or some of those other benefits where there's not as much paperwork, there's not as much rules as typical. It's more of a function of payroll versus a complicated purchase. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. It's very easy to line up an employer's payroll system with ours and to facilitate payroll deductions. What's great is with our platform, the employee decides for themselves which 529 plan they want to put money into, if they want to. The employer's not in the situation of having to pick a particular 529 plan to offer. Employers who have employees in multiple states and particularly with now more and more people working remotely, they tell us they don't want to be in a position of offering just one 529 plan because they don't know, because of these disparate tax treatment scenarios, which one is right for all of their employees. So they like our platform because it takes the pressure off of the employer and just allows the employee to decide for themselves which plan they want. And employers are using our payroll deduction platform, and they're also using our gift cards, interestingly. We were seeing that our gift cards were flying off the shelf in certain retailers, and we learned indirectly that in some cases, employers were buying them. So now we have a way to sell from our website directly to employers in bulk. And how are they using our gift cards? They're using them to welcome a baby that's born into one of their employees' families, rather than spending money on a silver spoon or a really expensive floral arrangement, which will soon die. They are giving a gift towards higher education. Some of them, I just learned, are using my book as well. They're given the book and the gift card. So the book to teach people about how to do it, and a gift card. They're also using them for rewards and recognition programs. I think over 70% of employers have some way that they're rewarding people from work milestones, going above and beyond, years of service, etc. And they often give gift cards. So rather than giving the more traditional gift cards, which are for restaurants and I don't know, maybe even Amazon and things like that, they're starting to include gift of college gift cards as something that an employee can select for themselves. And some of the employers who are doing that are saying that employees really appreciate having that as an option. Because when they get the gift card, they can use it towards a 529 plan. They can also use it to pay down student loan debt. Our gift cards work for either purpose.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So as you mentioned, you've got your book out there. Can you tell us a little bit more about the book? As far as I do see it. It's here on Amazon. I'm assuming it's out there at other retailers. What's who should be reading the book? What is it about? Can you give us a little more detail on that?
Absolutely. So the book is called Route 529, A Parent's Guide to Saving for College and Career Training with 529 Plans. It is available on Amazon and I believe at other retailers as well. I wrote this book in 2020 during the pandemic. I had extra time on my hands unexpectedly, as many of us did, and I kept hearing on the news about student loan debt. In addition to really bad news about this pandemic, I kept hearing about people were struggling with repaying student loan debt and they were going to start, putting payments on hold, et cetera. And I thought, no one's talking about how to avoid the student loan debt. Everybody's talking about whether it should be forgiven or waived or how much higher education is, but nobody's really talking about how to plan for it. So I thought, why don't I write a book? I've got this professional knowledge of over 24 years now. I've got a son who's about to be a senior in college who would soon be graduating debt-free. Why don't I share a little bit about my personal experience and incorporate my professional expertise, but do so in a way that it was very easy to understand. I think people sometimes find financial instruments to be rather complicated, incorporate the Internal Revenue Code, people get even more confused. But I tried to write it in a way that was really understandable. I didn't omit any of the important details, but I tried to put it in language that I felt parents could easily understand. I have key takeaways at the end of each section. And it really is not just about 529 plans. It's really about finding a way to prepare for this important future goal. I do talk about other ways to save, and I compare and contrast. I talk about the mindset that is very helpful when you're planning for something that's so long-term. And I spend a lot of time talking about why it is important to invite friends and family to contribute if you possibly can. I'll give tips for parents with younger children who, sometimes feel like there's no extra money to spare. I'll talk to them about the fact that when the child gets out of diapers, you were spending $50, $60, $70 a month on diapers and diapering supplies. Just take that money, celebrate the kids out of diapers, they're potty trained, take that money and put it in an account. I figure over 15 years, 16 years, depending on when the child's potty trained, whether at age 2, 3, whatever the age is, you can save over $15,000 just by having done that. I talk to parents in the book about, when daycare expenses go away because the kid's now in full-time school, consider reallocating some of that money. Just different ways. I share my own personal experience. My family drives a 22-year-old car. We never got a new car since our child was an infant. And why did we do that? We didn't want to spend money on things we didn't need. The car's still running. We cut our cable expense when my son was in middle school. We were spending a lot of money on TV channels that we didn't watch. Put that money in the 529. So I share some of my personal experiences. And I also share towards the end of the book, when you're close to reaching your destination, what are some strategies that can help you to avoid or minimize student loan debt? And I talk about the importance of really being honest with your child and yourself about what you can afford and what type of debt you're comfortable taking on, and why those decisions are important. Running after that dream school emotionally and not thinking of the financial implications for 10, maybe 20 years to come is not always the best idea. It's important to sit down and really have some honest conversations. We did that with our son. He knew exactly what we had saved. He knew, based on the different schools he had gotten into, what that would mean. We could cover a portion of something that was very expensive. Some of the schools 4 or 5 years ago were like $75,000, and he wasn't being offered any aid. So we looked at what the implications were. We looked at if he went to a state school, what that would mean. And we looked at the school that he attended, Clark University in Worcester, Massachusetts, and the merit scholarship that they offered him. He felt good about that school, as he did about a few of the others. But when he looked at the finances and really thought it through, that was a school that was going to enable him to come out debt-free. And it was the perfect combination of a school that felt good and one that was affordable. But we didn't skirt those conversations. Those are hard conversations for families to have, but I talk about it in my book because I think it's important. There's a lot of disappointment when those admissions letters start coming in and you've never, ever conferred with the people in your life closest to you about how you're going to cover those costs. So if it's not too late, if you're not already at that, I know it's admissions decision time right now. If you're not already there, start that conversation early. If you're there now, really think about how you're going to plan this. There are other ways to go in terms of getting a degree. There are a lot of quality schools, as Brad said earlier. If one feels like a good fit and it happens to be more affordable, you think your child's going to get the education they need there, that might be something you want to consider. Graduate on time by all means. Far too many students are, switching things up, and they're in school 5 or 6 years. That comes with additional cost. Right. And certainly tell friends and family that you don't want any more gifts that are easily outgrown or discarded, and to start putting money, help you and your child on this mission to save for college, because they'll do it. People don't know what to buy your kid. They're, struggling with that. Shopping's not easy. In or out of a pandemic, it's stressful. If you can just give them the easy and smart idea of helping you out, everybody wins with that.
Right. Absolutely. All right. So that was a good overview of the book. As mentioned, of course, it's certainly available at Amazon and where other books are available. I really do appreciate all the great information that you've given us. So where can we learn more if we want to get in contact with you, or Gift of College's contact information, et cetera?
Sure. So giftofcollege.com is where I work. Our website has those gift cards that can be bought online. There's also a section of the website that can tell you where to find them in retail based on your zip code, if you prefer to go in person to a store and get one. We also have information for employers on how they can offer higher education benefits, such as 529 plans and student loan repayment assistance. So that's one way. In terms of myself personally, I have a website called Route, ROUTE, 529.com. And I'm on Instagram at Route, ROUTE, 529 Mom. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. You can find my name, Patricia Roberts, along with Gift of College. But I'm out there. I'm on a mission to educate other parents. I want parents to know how good it can feel to have planned ahead, at least to some extent. And I want people to understand the existence and usefulness of 529 plans. I think people are remiss if they don't at least look into this.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's kind of one step that every family should take is to not only understand how 529 plans work, but also what's available in your particular state. And again, you may not use them. You may have different ways to go, but at least be aware of what it is that's available so you can make an informed decision. And some states now, just that kind of an aside, some states now are doing that similar thing where they're going to give you essentially a gift for getting started. So a few states are saying, if you set up an account for your recent newborn, then we're going to automatically put some free money in there to get it started. I'm seeing that pop up at a number of different states now. So
Yeah.
And again, the sooner you take advantage of it, the sooner it gets invested and the longer it has to grow. So you can maybe get that same benefit for your 10-year-old. And if you have a 10-year-old, you probably should. But ideally, you do it as soon as possible. And, do it now, whether it's a newborn, a 10-year-old, or an 18-year-old for that matter. But just be aware that what the states are offering is changing. Most states don't change that often, but between the 50 states, a couple of them change every year. And so kind of try and stay on top of that along with everything else you're dealing with college. So, all right. Well, thank you, Patricia. We'll stay in touch. And it was a lot of great information.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. And I hope this helps your audience out.
All right. That was a great interview with Patricia. As always, we can get our show notes at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/154. And of course, 529s have their benefits and they also have their downsides. So pay attention and stay tuned for all the disclosures.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions. The Baldridge companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.
Disclosures. The information provided to you today is for educational purposes only. It is not intended to be specific recommendations or advice. Please consult with a qualified professional before acting on any of this material. Investing involves risk. Depending on the types of investments, there may be varying degrees of risk. Investors should be prepared to bear loss, including total loss of principal. 529 College Savings Plan Disclosures. Investors should carefully consider investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. This information and other important information are contained in the fund prospectuses, summary prospectuses, and the 529 product program description. These documents can be obtained from a financial professional or directly from the plan's website. Please read them carefully before investing. Depending on your state of residence, there may be an in-state plan that offers tax and other benefits, which may include financial aid, scholarship funds, and protection from creditors. Before investing in any state's 529 plan, investors should consult a tax professional. If withdrawals from 529 plans are used for purposes other than qualified education, the withdrawal could be subject to a 10% federal tax penalty, state penalties, federal income tax, and state income tax. Brad Baldridge's disclosures. Brad Baldridge is a registered representative with Cambridge Investment Research. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad Baldridge is also an investment advisor representative with Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Baldridge Wealth Management and Baldridge College Solutions are affiliated. Cambridge and the Baldridge companies are not affiliated. The registered branch location is at 10521 West Layton Avenue, Suite 200, Greenfield, Wisconsin, 53228.